And welcome back to One on One with Nate and Aziz, hashtag Triple O Show. Thanks for sticking around with us. Minnesota fans, we've got good news and good news.
Yeah, you guys are out of the pit, I think. Maybe it's time to move on towards a brighter future.
Right. Finally, Jimmy Butler has been traded to the Philadelphia Sixers. Trust the process. For
hopefully he can trust the process.
I hope so. For Robert Covington, Dario Saric, Jared Bayless, who I suspect will be waived, and a 2022 second round pick.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, it just came in today, so I think we're still letting it digest a little bit. But I'm happy it happened. Honestly, you could see a little bit of a trend happening over the past couple weeks, wherein Jimmy's certainty of being on the floor each night was becoming less and less. So for them to be able to move on at this point is nice. Look, Saric, I had higher expectations for him at this point as well. Covington is going to be, I think, a big loss for three-point shooting, but bringing back in a two-way player at such a high caliber as Jimmy Butler, who will demand a lot from the two young stars on that team, which is a great thing, is a really good move for them. I think it's going to land pretty well.
I think so as well. I think for sure Covington's loss will be felt, but I think with Wilson Chandler just coming back, I think that's probably one of the reasons why they felt more comfortable giving up a guy like Robert Covington. And as well, I think Jimmy Butler is going to push those guys to a level that they need to be pushed to in order to get to that next step. And, I think Embiid is definitely going to be up to that task. I mean, we've already seen that as well as being dominant.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm so much concerned about the dynamic with Simmons and Fultz, but I could see maybe like a 10% rift of the reason why Jimmy Butler was so upset with Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins.
Yeah.
Him feeling a little bit of that toward Fultz and Simmons. But I think
Simmons too?
Yeah. I mean, I think Simmons plays hard, but I think it'll be more so like, why haven't you developed just a mid-range shot or something? Like, we know Simmons is working hard, but there's still parts of his game that need to be developed.
Right.
And
well, I think this will actually give him perhaps some flexibility to do that. Just because Jimmy on the offensive side can perhaps make up for his shortcomings as well. You know, Simmons has been so responsible for orchestrating their offense, it may have just taken away from his offensive development, but really I think it's gonna bring a different level of intensity and desire for a championship right now, that even though you guys were working towards that and hoping to be in that headspace and that feeling that vibe going into the playoffs, I think this has cemented their purpose for this season. I agree 100%. Fultz to me is still the kind of the last pole here, but he's made some steady progression, and I think he knows and understands that he doesn't have too much of a margin for error. So hopefully he just continues to work pretty hard.
I think Jimmy Butler actually increases his margin of error just for a little bit.
Okay.
Because, like you're saying, and now I think about to your point, I'm going to take back what I just said about Jimmy Butler having that rift with with Simmons and Fultz, because it's a whole different dynamic now, and we don't have Thibodeau. And I think Thibodeau's mindset coupled with Jimmy Butler just caused part of that rift, because Jimmy Butler and Thibodeau were so used to doing things one way in Chicago, and bringing over Thibodeau to Minnesota, still trying to instill that system, I think caused some of that dynamic. But being in Philadelphia and having Brett Brown, who's from the coaching tree of Popovich, I think he'll be able to get the most out of those players. And to your point, Jimmy Butler being the offensive player that he is, kind of takes less onus on Ben Simmons as well as Markelle Fultz to be relied upon as the scoring options.
Right. So where do you think that lands them now in the Eastern Conference playoff race?
Oh, man. Well,
I mean, they haven't played a game yet, so
right. So the
TBD.
TBD. The Raptors are still number one as far as we know right now. I do expect the Bucks to regress just a little bit, not a lot, and Boston ahead of them because we know the talent that Boston has, and they're still trying to put it all together. So I think I still got 3 or 4.
Yeah, I don't think they've shifted much.
Yeah.
As much as you've added to your team, the East is still that weak, so they were still at a high, I'd say a high caliber for being competitive this season. But we were talking about Houston. Jimmy just brings that element of toughness, of consistency, of night in, night out. This is what I offer. And he could have applied that to a lot of teams, and they really could use that right now. I'm happy that they were able to work out the contract piece of this. And I know there's some early talks to set him up for a long-term extension as well. So, could work out massively for Philly. Good for them. Is this the last stage of the process?
I think it could be. I definitely think. I don't know who else you could bring in or who would you want to bring in with the deals that they have, and we see in today's NBA the notion is you need 3 star players, top level players, and they've got 3 star players, and you're still don't know if Fultz can be that guy, and even if Fultz doesn't become that guy, still being a 4th option with the talent that he has is a great dynamic for them.
Yeah, still a ton of potential. And, I'm going to give some credit back to Minnesota that perhaps this was the right move, right?
Yeah.
It was an experiment that just didn't work out. And now at least you did get back some value.
So we had a little technical difficulties going on there, but to pick up where we left off from the Minnesota side of the trade, so we've got, rejuvenated MVP Derrick Rose alongside. Yeah,
I don't know what to call that man. He's been watching some old highlight mixtapes
on YouTube compilations.
Right.
But so now we're looking at Derrick Rose, Andrew Wiggins, Covington, Sarge, and Towns, and we're talking about. I think they're gonna need a new system because as I was saying, Tom Thibodeau I feel like would be the perfect coach for Memphis because the style of play that he wants to use and the culture that they have. But unfortunately, that's not happening. So with the players that he does
in the long term, because we were talking about perhaps at the end of this season, we may not see him be willing to stick around, or the organization may look to part ways as well. But with this young group of guys, again, I'm not gonna give him much benefit of the doubt that he's gonna be willing to change up his current system.
Because I think what we've seen so far at the beginning of the season is that Karl Anthony Towns has shown a proclivity to, kind of fade out around the 3-point line and shoot a lot more, long jumpers or 3-point shots. And like I said, we don't know, is Taj Gibson going to start, or do you start Sarge?
Right. I would definitely, I think Thibodeau will continue to use Gibson just because, he's performed well over the past few seasons. He's obviously fit himself and deserved a starting position. But when it comes to finding your offense, if you're losing a little bit of that with Jimmy gone, maybe you're keeping it around with D Rose. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Right.
But you're right. Sarge is a more competent scorer than Taj Gibson. He can shoot it more effectively, and he can play inside out if needed.
Yeah.
He just comes with his own set of liabilities.
Right.
He's not explosive, athletic, and he'll certainly get beat off the dribble time and time again. So I think he'll have to be willing to switch that up, or play a bit of a game throughout the course of the season.
I think they should start Sarge because it'll put the onus now on Karl Anthony Towns to get more down to the block. Now, he's still rebounding, but being away from, shooting 3-pointers, you're taking away from your ability to get offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
And he's very good on the block. So, and that's what, a lot of people saying we'd like more to be seen is that, Karl Anthony Towns, big guys like him, more on the block, dominating like a Joel Embiid.
Like a Joel, yeah.
And so I think because when you have Taj is such a hard-nosed player that he allows Karl Anthony Towns to float around the perimeter because he's going to be down there getting those tough buckets, the dirty work. So play him next to Sarge, maybe that gives us that Karl Anthony Towns that we've been looking forward to getting, or been hoping to see more of, Because as you said, we know Wiggins is chilling, man. He got that contract,
So again, it kind of to me comes back to who's the leader on the floor. Derrick Rose, I mean, over the past several games, he's had the ball in his hand seemingly the most, facilitating the offense, and taking the most shots. But who in the long term is going to get you not only into the playoffs but lead you through that experience? Because these are going to just be new challenges, right? They don't have somebody that they can lean on who's faced these circumstances before.
Who's been there before,
right?
Despite what Thibodeau,
and
Thibodeau can only tell
not,
them so much.
Exactly, Thibodeau's not.
He's not the coach for this team.
My brain, again, we talked about this in the other segment. Anytime I think about Chicago, my brain immediately tries to protect me, and it just shuts down.
He's got the PTSD.
Yes. Yeah, he's not going to be able to really guide those guys or support them in that aspect. So if Towns isn't that guy, I mean, he seems to have, in one aspect, very low-key energy, but also he can turn up and be really, engaged.
I think he has the ability to be that guy, but them bringing in Jimmy Butler kind of reversed that, and like we talked about, it sort of maybe gave him a reality check that, hey, kind of like Oladipo and Westbrook, where it's like, okay, I thought I was doing XYZ at this level, but now I see there's a whole different level, and I'm nowhere near where I thought I was.
Yeah.
So maybe with the departure of Jimmy Butler, although it was, the best, relationship, that he has things that he can take away from the time that Jimmy Butler was there and now apply it to be the leader that this team needs. Right.
Yeah, because with that comes that learning curve. The window is just shortening by the day. If you can't come to a point, I'd say over the next few weeks, because that team, they're impacted. It might not get talked about for the rest of the season, but they'll be impacted by a lot of what has happened.
Yeah.
And they need to either overcome that or kind of take a new breath of energy, and put forth a new sense of confidence of, this is our purpose as a team. Because again, it still does feel like occasionally they feel like a team of guys that are just collectively out there. While there's a system, there's nothing cohesive, nothing fluid. So, hey, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Again, Thibodeau, man, just give them a break, bro. Like, try something different. Get these guys, play some young guys. Get some guys off the bench. And things will be okay. You can sleep well at night.
Right. I don't think Thibodeau will be there after this year.
Yeah, this is his fourth season. That's more than enough to, prove yourself with a young team, I think. Ty Lue didn't even get 12 games, so.
Because it's crazy, man. I think about, say Thibodeau had not been there. And, of course, things could have changed, but essentially, you could have had, with a different coach, a lineup of Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, Andrew Wiggins, Lauri Markkanen, and Karl Anthony Towns. Tell me who you wouldn't want to coach this team. That on paper just sounds like, okay, that's a team that has a future. Your starting lineup's full of talented players, under the age of 25. And,
wow. I don't think he would have wanted that.
No. What?
He would have right. He would have been having some. He would have been trying to recruit for, I don't know, Luol or somebody to come on back.
Speaking of recruiting, with the emergence, I feel like every time Derrick Rose has a good game this year, Tom Thibodeau's calling the front office afterward, like, look, if I could get Joe King, you see what Derrick Rose
Kirk
is doing right now.
Still
right?
around.
He's like you guys said he wouldn't do well, but just imagine, like, if I can get Derrick to play this well, imagine what I could get Joe King and Kirk to do. So. But yeah, man, Derrick Rose, it has been so good to see him.
Yeah, very refreshing.
Not only play, but just perform at this level. As a Bulls fan, I'm sure this must bring back some great memories.
Yeah, I don't want to get choked up. No, that night he had it. The night he had his season or his career high, I think that was not necessarily a statement. That was something that he brought out of himself and reminded himself, I can do this. Yeah. That's why he had such an emotional response and people wanted to support him so much. The guy still has the tools. It was a matter of not only his mental but his body confidence. And he had changed some aspects of his game. We've seen his three-point shooting has just increased tremendously. But you still see some of that explosion, some finishing ability. And I think that every play he makes is a reminder. It's a stamp of confidence. And that's good for the rest of the organization. Moving out of this transition, maybe even that story and that narrative of itself can be something to rally behind and kind of come together as a team.
Right.
But yeah, what are your thoughts about where is this coming from?
I think, and so what we were talking about earlier, as far as like Alonzo Trier, where, like I said, everybody in the NBA to get to that level, you've got to be talented. It just becomes a matter of, system and opportunity. Because I was thinking about this, Derrick Rose, albeit a great player that he is, the game that he had 50 points, he played 40 minutes. I'm sure there's a handful of, and nothing against Derrick Rose, but there's a handful of players in the NBA. You put them on the court for 40 minutes, they're going to put up some numbers. So it's just really a matter of, we know the talent is there, but you have to have that opportunity. And it's tough with a player like Derrick Rose because we've seen this in the past with guys that, have gotten injured. I just think about Tracy McGrady. Tracy McGrady was, this all-world player, had the back spasms, the back problems after Houston. So from there, then he sort of became a journeyman from the Knicks to, I think he was the Spurs. He was on the Hawks one year. And for me, I always felt like, because he showed some flashes when he was on the Knicks of being, not the player he once was, but still having that talent. But it just seemed like he could never get in a situation where he would get that opportunity to play those minutes to showcase that, hey, I might not be a 32-point per game scorer, but, I could still go out there and make plays at a consistent level. And so I feel like that's what we're seeing with Derrick Rose, where all along we knew, or maybe we didn't know, but he knew himself that, hey, I might not be able to throw down those dunks like I did on Dragic, but, I can still play at a high level because we didn't really get to see him get those kind of minutes in Cleveland.
Right. And the expectation was a little bit different. You're playing behind the greatest point forward, whatever, in NBA history. Right. I don't know if Derrick ever doubted himself, but I know there was a point where he wasn't confident in his body. Every player that's gone through a severe injury has those moments, and it's just encouraging to see that even at this stage where a lot of players may have still felt some uncomfortability with their body, or they may have, their skills would have dwindled just because of their physical trailing as well. Derrick has really, again, kind of shown us that he has been working on his game, regardless of if he's been on the floor or not. And so this is, again, kind of a testament to other guys who are kind of looking for their opportunity, right? Just be prepared for it.
Right.
Because Derrick Rose could have been given these minutes, had a horrible season, and we'll never see him again.
Right.
But he stayed at the level he expected himself to be at. So
took the most of his opportunity. I mean, obviously, it doesn't hurt that he's playing for Thibodeau.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's
guys.
Oh yeah.
Like I said,
he's
he's
been
took
getting
the most
burn.
of the opportunity, and it's so great to see. Like I said, he might not have the same athleticism that he had, but like you said, we've seen he's adjusted his game to today's game. Like I said, the 3-point shooting has just been tremendous. I always said back when him and Westbrook were in their first couple of years, if either one of those guys can develop a 3-point shot, and not even otherworldly, but just enough to knock it down consistently, that their games would be scary. And we're seeing that this year from Rose and Westbrook.
Obviously Westbrook, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's one of those good feel things.
Yeah.
Because again, this is one of those stories where who knows where Derrick Rose would be right now. And you just like to see guys kind of closing out some of those chapters the right way.
For sure.
Or with some redemption, with some love now. He still got some love out there. I definitely tell you that.
For sure. It definitely the feel-good story of the season so far, and we definitely hope he continues the ball. I'm looking forward to seeing, what'll happen in the offseason if he continues to have, the greatest season that he has, because he's playing. He's on a 1-year contract, so in addition, to proving to himself, he's out there, proving to other teams that may be looking for a point guard in the future. So. For sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. While he's not in the same, he doesn't bring the same dynamics to the game as, say, a Rondo. I still see, people can recognize the value in Rondo's game. So
he's still a starting point guard.
Exactly.
And I think that's what he's out to prove this year.
Exactly. Well, good to see. Minnie, you got a lot of challenges ahead, but keep the hope alive.
Fire Thibodeau.
Be your best bet, or put him on the floor. Like, get this guy, motherfucker.
Right. Let me see his
minutes
defense
for the whole game.
See how he likes playing 40 minutes a night.
Please.
All right. That's gonna wrap up. So we no longer have to talk about we do have to talk about the Timber Bulls. Until,
we'll keep them on our radar.
But yeah. So we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about, our weekly LeBron and LA saga, so stick around.